Hello again from my bed, because honestly it's just the most convenient place to film at the moment because I'm just so lazy. Today I thought I would talk about some of the things that I really don't like about writing. I love writing. It is my favorite thing in the world. I mean, aside from like bread, even when I love something so much, you can still find some faults with it. So these are just some of the things that kind of irk me about writing, and some of these things are things that other people do when writing. Some of these things are things that happen to me when writing. I've kind of ordered these in the least annoying to the most annoying. I've thought of 10 things, but if I think of more, I'll probably do another video of this. Let's get started. Number one, and this kind of might not make a whole lot of sense, but I'll try to explain it as best as I can. It's very nitpicky. If there's a character who's giving a long speech that extends over a few paragraphs, normally what you'll see is if the previous paragraph ends on a dialogue and the next paragraph continues on a dialogue, you won't see the closing quotation mark at the end of the previous paragraph. It'll just jump to the next paragraph without the quotation mark, and the next paragraph will start with the quotation mark, but the same character is still speaking. Hopefully that makes sense. So what annoys me here is that in this book that I was reading, The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh, instead of doing that, the author inserted an action beat that was completely unnecessary to the plot. It was kind of like a filler action beat, just to kind of avoid doing that whole dialogue thing. So that way she could break up the paragraphs with some kind of action beat instead of just having the character speak the whole thing. It's such a nitpicky thing, but I kept noticing it during the scene, and so it just really bothered me, so I thought I would add it to this list. And it was, so far it's been specific to that book. Number two is an abundance of grammar mistakes. As I mentioned before, I minored in creative writing, and you know, in that you workshop a lot of other people's work. Sometimes somebody will come to class and their whole section that they're going to workshop is riddled with grammar errors to the point where it's difficult to understand what's going on in certain sentences or even like throughout the whole piece. I don't mind grammar errors here and there. It happens. Like, you know, we're human, we're not perfect. But when there's so many grammar errors that I'm actually having trouble understanding what's going on, or where the meaning of the sentence changes because you didn't put that comma there, you know, things like that, that's what really irritates me. Number three, kind of going off the last thing, is when people are blatantly rude when they're critiquing your work. There's just kind of this unspoken rule that you're supposed to be, you know, constructive in your criticism, that you're supposed to be kind in your criticism. Even if you're saying things that the author needs to work on, you should still be polite about it, because creative writing, you know, it's such a personal thing. It's like, it's your baby. You don't want somebody tearing you down for it. There was one example of this that happened in one of my creative writing classes. This was like, I think the first or second critique that we were doing, so it was like the very beginning of the semester, but still, you know how it's supposed to be. And one student didn't like the other student work, like, period, and she specifically said so. She's like, I didn't like it, I thought it was bad, I didn't like it. And she was very rude about it, and everybody is like kind of looking around at each other like, did she really just say that? And I'm looking at the professor like, okay, are you going to say something? It was just a moment of like, I can't believe that that student was so rude to the author about their writing. It's okay if you don't like something, but don't say that in such a rude way. Maybe don't even say that at all. Just because when you say you don't like something, that's not being helpful. That's just saying, I don't like it, okay? But like, why don't you like it? What's not working for you? That's the kind of thing that you need to say in a workshop, and the student just didn't do that. That was just a really awkward moment for everybody involved, and the writer luckily handled it like a champ, so, you know, props to him. But it was just really awkward and just uncalled for. Number four is when other people who are not writers rush you to finish the book. They may not do this intentionally. They may not realize that writing a book is not... It takes time to write a book. It takes even more time to write a good book. And so feeling rushed to do so doesn't help. Number five, when people assume that because I'm writing a book that I'm automatically going to be like the next J.K. Rowling or Stephen King, or, you know, insert other really popular author here. There are a lot of books out there, okay? There's a very small percentage of books out there that become bestsellers, and there's an even smaller percentage of books that make the author rich. Unless you're just very lucky and your first book out the gate is a bestseller, it usually takes several books to make you the type of author who can live off their writing. I don't like explaining to people whenever I hear this that, yeah, you know, becoming the next J.K. Rowling. That's very rare. That doesn't usually happen. That was kind of a once in a lifetime sort of thing. People just don't necessarily get that. They kind of come back like, oh yeah, but that'll be you, right? You'll be the next one. I'm like, yeah, and I just kind of play it off like, I don't, you know, there's not a whole lot that I can really say about it that they'll understand. Number 6, having 2 spaces after a period mark. I don't know why this bothers me so much. When I'm reading something, it's so obvious to see that there are 2 spaces after a punctuation mark. Even sometimes, you know, when I'm writing in my draft, you know, sometimes you just accidentally hit that space bar 2 times, fine. But every now and then I'll go to find and replace in Microsoft Word. I'll replace the 2 spaces with 1 space, and Microsoft Word will fix the issue for me, and we can move on with our lives, you know, happy, go lucky, whatever. But it's just such an antiquated practice. Some of my professors in college, not necessarily writing professors, but just professors in general, wanted you to have 2 spaces after a period, or like in their documents that they would hand out to everybody, there would be 2 spaces, and I'm just like, it's 2017. Why is this still a thing? I'm like, I get that, you know, that these people grew up in a time where 2 spaces was probably the norm, but you know, times change. 2 spaces become 1. I'm sorry, that's just how it is now. Number 7, when the writing style is very dense in a book to the point where it's very hard to understand what's going on. It's hard to retain information or even just to be interested at all. I've read a couple of published books like this where I'm reading it and there's a crap load of political stuff going on, and there's a crap load of world building going on, and there's a crap load of like info dumping or whatever going on, and I'm just reading it and it's going in one eye and out the other, or whatever gruesome metaphor you want to put there, but like I'm not retaining anything. I'm not completely interested, and those are the types of books that I usually put down. For example, Sarah J. Maas books, I've read, except for Tower of Dawn, I've read all of her books that have been published. So, but like with Queen of Shadows and Empire of Storms in particular, I got about halfway through them and then had to take a break from them because I was just like, not that the writing style is dense in that case, it's just sometimes like the world building, like it's so much that I just can't, like it becomes overwhelming in a way, and so I had to take a break and put it down for a little bit. I started reading Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Don't shoot me, but I didn't get very far into it, but already I was just having trouble retaining a lot of the information, which is interesting because he's kind of hailed as the king of world building. I do still plan to read this book at some point, but we will see. Number 8, when strangers ask what my book is about. I'm a very reserved person. I don't usually go about giving out personal information, you know, and to be honest with you, I consider my stories, like my plots, I consider that to be personal information because, you know, just as personal as like if I told you my address or my social security number, it almost feels like that's what I'm telling somebody when they ask me what my story is about. And so I'll usually just give a very vague one-liner description of what the story is about because I don't want to give too much away. I don't even really want to tell them what it's about in the first place. And this is more of an issue with people that I don't know very well, or people that are not writers or readers, because then it's kind of just like, you know, I feel like I'm being judged for what I'm writing about. I feel like they don't understand, you know, I feel like this, I feel like that. It's just kind of a bit uncomfortable, so that's why I usually just give the one-liner sentence, and they usually don't ask for more information than that, so that's good. A lot of the things on this list are things that have to do with other people, things that other writers have done, but these last 2 things on this list are things that are only about me. And these are the things that irk me the most about writing. Number 9, how easy it is to fall into this void of not being productive and not writing. You miss 1 day of writing and suddenly you miss 2 days and suddenly you miss 3 days, and next thing you know you haven't written anything for like a week or 2 or a month or even longer. And it's just really easy to get kind of out of control like that. It's really easy to lose that momentum that you had when you just stop writing. And I really don't like that. I wish it was as easy to sit down and write sometimes as it is to just like pick up the remote control and turn on the TV or go on YouTube watching other people's content. You know, a lot of it's kind of mindless. It's mindless in that you don't have to do a whole lot once you put it on. You know, it's not like reading a book where you have to interpret every word and you have to process it and you have to build an image in your head. You know, like you're just kind of like, it's all right there for you. And I'm pointing this way because my television is right there. But like, you know, you watch it and there's not a whole lot of analysis you have to do for the most part. But writing is not like that. It's completely a thinking game. You have to know what you're doing. You can't just sit there and blah 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 crank out random crap on the keyboard that just becomes, you know, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Like, it doesn't happen like that. It's just really easy to have that snowball effect happen. And number 10, I made a whole video about this, which I will link down below, and that is just the crippling self-doubt slash the creative depression that happens with writing. I know a lot of creative people will probably feel me here. One day you're on top of the world. You really do feel like you're going to be the next J.K. Rowling or Stephen King. But then the next day, all of a sudden, you're lying at the bottom of a pit, covered in animal feces, on fire, singing Britney Spears. I don't know, but it's just like everything that's really wrong is wrong. You're the worst writer in the world. Everything sucks. Why did you ever start writing? Because it just feels like you can't do it. It feels so, it's really depressing. It's really just this one thing that you love most in the world, and suddenly you're no good at it. Suddenly you don't feel like you're worth doing it. All the bad things, That happens a lot more often than I would like. Multiple times during a draft. It's like whiplash of the soul, because my soul hurts because it's being yanked in all these various directions. I still don't know how I've managed to come out of it in the past. I think maybe just taking a couple of days break in which you try not to put yourself down. Maybe try to do something else that you love. I don't know. Sometimes what you really just need when you have crippling self-doubt, I guess, is distance and time away from the writing, which, kind of sucks. Maybe you've got your own solution to this. I don't know. It's just, yeah. All right. So those are 10 things that are my pet peeves with writing, are things that I hate about writing, are things that suck about writing. Probably my next video, or one of my next videos, will be 10 things that I love about writing. If I can think of 10 things, we'll see. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give this video a like, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Toodaloo!